is undefeated. Time is the world's greatest detective.
Okay, but wait a minute. Why do you make that analogy when, in fact, it's absolutely acknowledged that they have nuclear weapons program? It's absolutely acknowledged that last year 3 of their facilities were obliterated by U.S. attacks with the assistance of Israel. So why would you even use that analogy that we have this collective memory of us being lied to about Saddam Hussein? So therefore, we're being lied to, or the public believes it. The public doesn't believe we were being lied to. Everybody knows that there were nuclear facilities there that were attacked by the United States. There's no denying.
You're missing the point. My point was not necessarily whether they had them or not had them. My point is confusion causes doubt. And when the message is not clear, then people can do nothing but rely on memory. I didn't say whether they have them.
That's not true. That is nonsense.
Okay, based on what?
That is absolute nonsense. People have the ability to compartmentalize things, and I really have problems with people who come to the stage and denigrate the ability of the American people to be able to comprehend what's going on. They may not be attuned to it, and the general public certainly is not as engrossed in it as we are here in the critical thinking forum, but people are not going to sit around in bars saying, you know, we can't believe them about this because they lied about that. They're able to recognize that, in fact, there's a nuclear threat coming from Iran. Do you deny that statement?
I disagree with you about what people think because I don't tend to speak for everyone. I do know that, hold on, I do know that in my crowd.
You just did, absolutely, because you talked about the collective memory of the American people. So when you talk about collective American people, you're talking about everyone. So you open the door.
I would disagree with that.
Well, you know what? If I were the judge, I would say, Counselor, you open the door to that line of questioning. You were the one who interjected it. Now you want to pull back from it.
No, I disagree with your interpretation of collective memory. I don't think we're disagreeing. I'm kind of lost here because the only thing I'm saying is I came up to agree with Anson that this was not sold correctly and that people have a right to say, hey, am I being told the truth? And it kind of feels like what the opposite opinion is like, well, no, people should just agree to agree or just step aside. And I just somewhat, I'm not even disagreeing with you, Gary. I just disagree with the premise that this was not sold the right way.
Well, I never suggested that it was sold the right way, and I have been critical of the way it was sold and the fact that the mission changed so many times, as it has in previous iterations of military prowess by the United States. My only objection is that you used as your analogy the weapons of mass destruction allegation vis-a-vis Saddam Hussein, and then you superimpose it over this. And I object to you doing so because it's not the same thing, and you're implying while saying, well, I'm not really saying it, but you certainly are implying that that's what's happening here, and you and I both know that's not what's happening here. That is a technique of debate, but it's not a fair technique of debate.
Okay, I disagree with Anson. That if you want to get the majority of people behind a cause, and if you say the mission changed, well, did the mission actually change, or did the messaging change? Because they would be two distinct things. You know, the value to Iran the value of Iran to America has historically been its oil, and I don't think there's any denial of this, right? We went into we overthrew these guys in 1953 because Iran asked British Petroleum for an audit. Churchill and the CIA led a coup that overthrew this government. And like Malcolm X, I'll shut up now, but Malcolm X, when JFK was killed, he said the chickens come home to roost. And I think sometimes I agree. Sometimes the chickens come home to roost.
Is that what happened when he was killed? Did the chickens come home to roost then?
Say that again.
Malcolm X was assassinated as well. Did the chickens come home to roost then?
Yeah, you could absolutely say when he started talking, when he found out about those women having babies, yeah, the chickens came home to roost.
Interesting. Thank you, Daryl. We'll go to David, followed by Home.
Yeah, Gary, great room so far. Appreciate the dialogue here. We always want to obviously come from the position that we're pro-American, that we want to see our country succeed, particularly with the level of import that this region has imposed on the world. But that doesn't appear to be what's happening. It appears that we have a triangulation of issues that aren't resolved, and Iran obviously has the upper hand with the leverage. Now you can say we can continue to bomb them into oblivion, further maybe sowing discord amongst its own people. They rally around the flag, and of course, big oil, big insurance is going to say, "Sorry, United States, we're going to pass on insuring these boats for now." So as long as Iran can extract that pain point in the strait and keep those ships from passaging, Trump's in a rock and a hard place. Iran is attacking commercial shipping despite the oil deal, right? This memorandum, Gary, has not held sway. In fact, it was probably a deferred crisis on paper that only had I read an article with this. There's a detonator attached to it, and that's essentially what has happened here. Israel continues to bomb Lebanon, let me be clear, bomb their enemy in Hezbollah out of state, requirements to protect itself. And the United States can't necessarily rein in Netanyahu to not do that. And so Iran's saying, well, the gloves are coming off. And now Trump is looking at facing defeat on two fronts. The crisis in the Gulf, and now the midterms, if gas prices continue to surge. And we saw what oil has done this week so far with regard to this incursion. And so either way, it looks like Trump's off-ramps are just, they're falling by the wayside. And, so Iran's continued to weaponize and leverage in a way that they didn't have before February 28. And now, show us the cards then at that point. Absent sending in our troops, absent putting boots on the ground and doing a full wage incursion, which will then light up the right. I mean, to Anson's point about the divide, there's not only a divide against the left and the right, there's a divide within the right. So Israel's looking at facing
the left right now too, isn't there? Both of the parties are facing threats from within, right?
Correct. Yeah, I've never seen a more divided and division as extended as this. And all the hard-won gains that Israel's earned with regard to the party affiliations and going, a one policy, two nation approach to the Middle East is now being sandbagged by talk show hosts and all the talking points coming out of the right. And if our men and women go over there and die, then I mean this presidency is over, because it won't happen overnight. I mean, I think if we could do it in 6 months and take out the regime, I think the American people would go for that. But I don't think that's possible. And maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, I'm not a military guy. My heart breaks. Like I said, I have a nephew who just signed up for the Marines, so he's clearly on the front lines of potentially going over there. But make no bones about it, Gary, Iran is not afraid of whatever the hell they signed. They're not going to be beholden to something where they feel their interests aren't being served, right? And maybe they're using this latest incursion with these ships to extract an even better deal. And I don't think Trump is in a position to get a better deal than the one that he got. So that's I think that is what Iran is bargaining for here. is to get more leverage, get more of a position with regard to the rebuilding their economy, and of course controlling the ships and setting the freight.
I'm gonna check you on that. If they were interested in rebuilding the economy, they would have adhered to the memorandum of understanding, because the memorandum of understanding opened up the floodgates for them to receive billions of dollars, literally. And so if it was about the economy, they would have said, okay, we'll go along with this.
But
it's not about the economy.
My question is, who threw the first punch? Did Iran throw the first punch?
Yes, the Iranians threw the first punch in this memorandum of understanding. They broke it. They attacked 2 oil ships in contravention of the memorandum of understanding. They were not supposed to do it in the first place, and they did it anyway.
Stop and think about it. If you look at it logically, which of course we cannot when it comes to Iran, look at it logically. Listen, Iran, all we're asking is that we return to the way it was before with regard to the Strait of Hormuz. We're not asking you to give up anything. We just want the Strait of Hormuz to be open like it was before all of this started. And you know what? We'll remove the sanctions. We'll let you do international banking. We'll return your money that we are holding offshore. We'll give it to you. You can rebuild your economy. Knowing Donald Trump, maybe he'd go in there with the Trump organization and make some money rebuilding their economy with gold-plated buildings all over the damn place with the name Trump on them all. They could have had all of that. And yet, no way am we going to uphold this. We're going to attack 2 ships on the Oman side of the strait because we can do it, and we're going to show the big evil empire, the United States, we can. Doesn't matter what memorandum of understanding we signed. We can do whatever we want, and that's what they did, David. So what would you expect the president to do at that point?
Well, then the response needs to reflect the breach of that agreement. Now,
He bombed 90 sites in one night.
Yeah, but then
Absolutely
reflected 2 nights in a row.
The agreement. 2 nights in a row. It absolutely reflected the breaking of the agreement. What did you expect? As he said, what did you expect him to do?
Well,
can I make one comment here, David, on something you said?
The question I have is, sorry, the question I have, does this agreement mean Israel's supposed to stand down as well, and was that broken?
Israel is not part of the agreement.
So mandate what Israel does. We cannot mandate what Israel does. We don't have the power. We don't control their political system. We don't control their military. We don't control their air force. We can't mandate that they stand down. We just can't.
And let me just say as an aside, Abby, if you don't mind for a moment. Let me just say as an aside, that kind of conflation, I'm not saying there isn't an Israel aspect here, because Israel certainly stands to gain by the demise of this regime. Israel certainly stands to gain by the eradication of the terrorist groups that Iran funds. Israel certainly stands to gain by the elimination of the nuclear threat of Iran. Absolutely true. But to conflate everything with Israel is a very dangerous thing. Why do I say it's dangerous to do that? David doesn't have a mean bone in his body, I believe. But I will tell you, David, why it's mean. A very dangerous thing to do. Yesterday, a guy from Delaware County, Pennsylvania, was arrested by the Pennsylvania State Police for walking into a state legislator's office for help with resolving a back tax issue he had, and suggesting to the people there that he was going to go and set the governor's mansion on fire again, because the first time it was set on fire by an anti-Semite who set it on fire because Shapiro somehow is responsible for the actions of a nation 5,700 miles away. Shapiro has to be taken out. So, and his family, the guy said. So he's going to go back there and set that mansion on fire again and finish the job the first one did. Get rid of Josh Shapiro and his family. As if the governor of Pennsylvania, because he's a Jew, has anything to do with the policies of Israel, whether you agree with those policies or disagree. I'm going to call bullshit from now on anytime somebody says he's doing what Benjamin Netanyahu told him to do. Nobody tells Donald Trump what to do. Some people say that's really a great part of his personality. Some people say he's an egomaniac and he should park it and listen to his advisors when they tell him what he should or shouldn't do. But I think we can all agree, whether we adore the man or whether we hate the man, nobody tells him what to do, much less Bibi Netanyahu. And so let's not conflate something that doesn't really exist here. Yes, we have mutual interests vis-a-vis Iran, and it's an absolute imminent threat to Israel, Iran, not so much to the United States, but we're not completely indemnified from it. But that does not mean that we are doing Bibi Netanyahu's bidding here. And, you know,
I'm not making that claim.
No, but I'm trying to explain to you, by conflating the two in the manner in which you did, you're putting Jews here in the United States in danger. Not you. I'm just saying, when people do this, they put Jews in the United States in danger. Because every one of these attacks on the Jews, the claim is they're attacking the Jews because of what's going on. What about the babies in Gaza? What does a Jewish person walking out of a synagogue in Brooklyn have to do with the babies in Gaza? Do I know whether he supports the Israeli policy or not? I don't know, and it's none of my business. And even if he does support it, what does he? Do they take a referendum of the Jewish populace in the United States before deciding what they're going to do over there? Does anybody really logically believe that? So I'm calling bullshit on the analogy and merging the two issues. There's an overlap, yes. Yes, there's an overlap of interests. But on at least two and maybe three occasions that we know of, the President of the United States picked up the phone and called the Prime Minister of Israel, the leader of a sovereign nation, and said to him, "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" That's an exact quote from the President of the United States to the Prime Minister of Israel. So to suggest that that Prime Minister is telling the President of the United States what to do is absolutely absurd.
No, but I never made that argument, by the way.
No, I know you didn't say that explicitly.
But the optics of a Prime Minister, of Netanyahu, making many visits to the United States to meet with Trump and all that, it provides, unfortunately, these ignorant talking points.
Okay. Let me call him up right now. Hey, Bibi, if the optics of this are bad, Bibi, don't come and talk to the President of the United States, Bibi.
That's not what I'm saying.
Can I say something to David for a second? David, you also made a comment about talk show hosts, that Israel has to worry about what U.S. talk show hosts say. I need to quote Golda Meir, one of my favorite quotes, and she said, "If we have a choice between being dead and pitied and being alive with a bad image, we'd rather be alive and have the bad image." So much for the talk show hosts. It's a sovereign nation trying to stay alive and not be annihilated by the threats coming out of Iran.
Right. Right. And to my point, these talk show hosts, I'm not so much concerned about what what they do in terms of impressions of Israel. Israel's going to do what Israel needs to do. A pox on them for ginning up hatred against Jews in the United States.
Absolutely. Yeah,
That's my concern about the talk show hosts. Now, you're going to blame that on Bibi? Because if Bibi wasn't attacking in Gaza and in Lebanon, these talk show hosts wouldn't have fodder to turn the populace against the American Jews? Come on. That's the line of reasoning that's out there. And it's got to be challenged every time that it is made, in my opinion. And that's why I've devoted almost 100% of my writings, if you've noticed on my social media, to this issue, protecting the Jews. Because they're under unbelievable duress in the United States of America and around the world in the diaspora.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. I don't fall at all for your campaign. I think it's very timely and necessary, and more journalists need to take to the airwaves and the internet and to do that. No, absolutely, and it's an unfortunate.
The threat against the president. The threat against the governor of a state.
Yeah, for sure, 100%, Gary.
I bet you 9 out of 10 people
Not
in
just
this
that,
room.
not just that, Gary. A potential presidential campaigner for the United States.
Did you know about this threat before I mentioned it?
The second one? No.
Yeah, no. Why? Why is it not getting coverage? When Gretchen Whitmer, when they busted those guys for plotting the kidnapping and killing of Gretchen Whitmer, it became national news, and rightly so. How come this hasn't become national news?
Right. Absolutely.
Come on. Let's call it for what it really is. And I'm not blaming you for the problems of the Jewish people at all, David.
Thank you. I appreciate it. No, I know you're not. I appreciate that. I know you're not. Okay. All right. Well, those are my points. Thank you for letting me speak. And hopefully the others can have time to say what they need to say.
Thank you, David. Let's go to Homer, followed by Philip.
You know, your other speakers have taken a lot of time, so I will be succinct. I think Iran has had every opportunity for peace, and they've provided clarity by continuing to attack the world. And I'll be the only person on this stage to predict the regime will be overthrown, they'll be washed away by history, and no regime will deserve it more. And I'm done speaking.
You just want to trigger Marshall by using the term succinct.
He's the person I got it from, which is why I don't like it.
Oh, come on. Come on. Just because you and he may not
I know.
Philosophically.
It's a really petty thing.
Very petty.
It's as petty as the president.
All right, let's move on from that very succinct discussion between Marshall and me and go to Philip, followed by Amir.
Hi, Gary, thank you very much. I just want to, about this MOU and some of the discussions in the room last night when somebody actually read the wording of the MOU. And when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, I think it said something about making the best effort to keep it open, which of course brings me back to the point that there's a lot of factions in Iran, and there's some people that's heavily opposed to any kind of peace negotiations. And I think it might be difficult to keep the people that actually signed that MOU responsible for what happens in the Strait of Hormuz. Therefore, the wording, their best. But of course, the United States is quick on the trigger, and like was mentioned, 90 sites was struck by missiles. Also, just of course, it made me think of the fact that with great power comes great responsibility. And of course, it might be argued that some in Iran see the United States as an existential threat. I mean, it was the United States which plotted and then assassinated the Ayatollah, was it not? And half of his family, which of course violence begets violence. So when the Ayatollah is being buried, you know, I don't know, to me, those people shouting those, horrible things. But I mean, it's what there's a difference between what you hear and what you actually see. Um, um, you know, what's actually happening. So I think people are not like water. Just like in the United States, there's many different opinions and factions, and it's the same in Iran. And there's people like Stefan who spoke earlier who was thanking Donald Trump and for the assassination, whereas there's other people that's willing to take up weaponry and try and shut the whole peace process down. So yeah, I think it's a really difficult situation. I think that there must be some kind of negotiated peace. One should never give up hope on that. I think religious fundamentalism carries some blame, and education and a proper example, and not always to answer violence with violence. Sometimes, as we can see, it is not. It is definitely not the answer. And some of the rhetoric, like we hear in this room, that Iranian people were made by God to show other people how evil people are. That's not the rhetoric which provides a good outcome in terms of wanting to have peaceful negotiations and people just living peacefully with a little bit. Anyways, that's what I wanted to say, and thanks as always for this room.
Philip, I think that your comments about the cause and effect for the chance deaths to Trump and the threats to assassinate him are void of history. Alan, are you listening?
Yes, sir. I'm listening, and I'm
okay. I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something in Farsi, and I'm probably going to mispronounce it. I'm going to say March Bar Carter.
You want to say
Mark Bar Carter? What did I just say in Farsi?
You said death to Carter.
Death to Carter.
Mark Bar Carter. This
Death to Carter.
I hope the rest of the world.
Were they not shouting death to Carter outside the U.S. Embassy during the Iranian?
They were doing it in Arlington, Texas, in the UTA. What are you talking about?
Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you very much.
But I hope, let me make one wish. I hope 99.9% of the world, they think like Philip, because he thinks we are dealing with a bunch of angels. I was pissed off because I said 99% of these people, they don't care about human lives whatsoever. If they did, they wouldn't burn 7,000 of them people in the bazaar of city of Rash, which is on the border of Caspian Sea, Philip. I hope you heard me. And you want to sit down and talk to these people, negotiation. Yes, peace talk. You sit down, talk to the peace. It shoot the son front of the father, and they made the father 75 million toman pay to get the body for the bag, and the bullet hit his son and it killed him. You want to sit down on the table and negotiate with these people. Thanks to you. I hope the rest of the world think like you. We will be living in the heaven. Back to you.
And remember, as Alan sometimes mentions, he hasn't mentioned it today, their governmental philosophy, which is a theocratic philosophy, is to spread this around the world, starting with Europe. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. Amir,
Well, I just want to say that I'm in South Africa, and if I would want to share the atrocities that can occur, I mean, it would be shocking to all of you, but I don't, because I want to have hope for a world where we can live in some kind of negotiated peace. So I'll go out with, all we are saying is give peace a chance.
and as I said when I first sang it, that's one of my favorite songs. But you know, you and I, Philip, can negotiate a peace. If we're having an argument, you and I can negotiate a peace. Why? You and I are reasonable people, and we will say, well, it's to the benefit of both of us to resolve this. This regime does not think the way Philip and Gary do. Amir.
Hi, guys. Hi, Alan. I just wanted to just basically confirm what you just said about charging for bodies. This has not changed one iota from 47 years ago, when they actually shot people and then they charged for the bullet. So this regime is very, very consistent in what Alan has just said. I just wanted to confirm that. My next point is regarding what you said, Gary, regarding the issue that the Jewish people are facing in America. And I don't know if you remember when Ahmadinejad was in power, he actually set up a conference in Tehran, and there were quite a big number of Jewish people that some I remember that were from New York. They came and attended to the conference, and they were actually against Israel and what Israel was doing at the time in the West Bank by demolishing houses and what have you. So I don't really understand how people can decide which Jew is it. Is it the one that's against Israel, or is it the one that's pro-Israel when they attack them in the US, or when they sort of talk against them and being anti-Semite? So that's quite a question for me. What I really wanted to say is what Darrell, I think, talked about, and he talks about the value of Iran to the United States being loyal. I'd like to make a point, and this is quite an important point, which is often misunderstood. You know, there's a massive difference between Iran and the two countries that talk about, Russia and China, because we put these three countries together very often, and there is a big difference between them. And that is if you like, the cultural divide between the vast majority of the people in Iran and the regime in Iran. Okay? Vast majority of people in Iran, culturally, they lean very much towards the Western values. The freedom, democracy, secularism, liberalism, multi-party stuff, etc., etc. Whereas we know that the regime in Iran is completely the opposite. The slogans and the rhetoric in the past 47 years is a clear testament to that. Now, this is definitely not the case for Russia and Russians and China and the Chinese. There is no such a divide culturally between the people and the government in these two countries, namely Russia and China. So I think that is quite an important factor which should not be ignored. I actually think Iranians, the vast majority of the Iranians, have a great potential to be a kind of a genuine friend of the West, in particular the US. And that's an important consideration. I think that's often missed. So I really wanted to make that point, which is quite important.
Amir, just to correct you, the group that attended the Holocaust Denial Summit in 2006 were from the Natura Carta, which is a very extreme religious sect. That's the same group you see protesting with the pro-Hamas crowd in New York, and it is a fringe small sect, and it was shunned all over the world, including a statement from the chief rabbi of Israel at the time, who urged the global Jewish community to boycott and ban any of those rabbis from any of their temples. And mainstream Jewish groups and organizations from around the world made statements regarding that group that went to Iran. So no, that was not representative of the board of presidents or any large group from the United States or from anywhere in the world. Say it was a small fringe group in 2006. I just wanted to set the record straight on that.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. I didn't actually know that, but my point is, I think it still stands. If someone wants to attack a Jewish person, then how do they know which side they are on? That was the point I was making, but obviously, thank you for clarifying.
And I would take it a step further. It doesn't matter which side they're on.
Sure,
A Jewish
of course,
person in the United States who's 100% in support of the actions of Israel that some people claim is even genocidal. I'm not obviously claiming that. Has no impact on the decision that was made in Jerusalem to do whatever the IDF did. Zero impact. So why are you killing them? I'm attacking them. And sometimes killing. Doesn't matter whether they are in agreement or disagreement with the state of Israel. What matters is, remember, before there was a state of Israel, there had centuries of persecutions of the Jews. The Holocaust, from which Israel was born, to find a safe haven for the Jews who were not safe in their own countries of birth in Europe, occurred before the modern state of Israel. So what was the excuse then? It's all bullshit. And I'm going to call bullshit when I see the bullshit. Michaela, you get the last.
I was just going to ask Amir, I just came in late, so I didn't, but he was saying how the people of Iran, have so much to offer, and I agree. How were they overtaken by, how was the regime, how did the regime take over these people?
Well, I think the way it happened, obviously, the revolution was for the right reasons, if you like. It was the majority of the people. I mean, a lot of people call it don't like to call it a revolution, but it had all the hallmarks of every type of revolution from the social science point of view. Now, what happened was then all the different groups from the right to the left to the nationalists, they all revolted against what they thought as a despotic regime of the Shah at the time. Now, but then gradually, the people who had the most sophisticated organization within the religious circles managed to basically get rid of all the other groups gradually. And once they got that to that point, then they started enforcing their power through the bullet, basically. And they managed to kill thousands of people at the time to get rid of any kind of, dissent against their despotic rule. And that has developed over the past 47 years to the point that now they can kill tens of thousands of people. They can machine gun them and still get away with it. I mean, it's amazing that the world community doesn't call it a genocide when something like that happens. And yet in Gaza, for example, they can call it a genocide. So, it just mind boggles, basically.
Amir, do you have any hope for Reza Pahlavi to have some influence or to help his people? Or do you have any hope for that?
It certainly has a quite a lot of following. Well, in Iran, I mean, I'm personally a Republican, but I'm more than happy for Reza Pahlavi to lead the opposition in terms of what is offered. In fact, to be honest with you, when he talks, he almost comes across as a Republican himself, because he doesn't necessarily believe in royalty. I mean, in a royal household.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. He seems to have, people have backed off. Like they've given up on him, or they've given up on the people. It's. There was a lot of hope at first for another uprising.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is that it's a classic problem of too many chiefs and not enough Indians. There are a lot of groups which are I mean, in terms of the Republicans within the Iranian diaspora, there are about 20 or 30, and each one of them have got their own little sort of groups, and the sort of solidarity that was expected to be created around Reza Pahlavi unfortunately didn't happen because he's sorry.
Yeah, I thought that there would be infighting within Iran, but there's infighting in the diaspora. Well, that's what happened.
That's exactly what happened, yes.
Yeah. That's too bad. Very bad.
But Pahlavi, by the way, has said publicly that what he aspires is to lead a temporary interim government, and then let the people of Iran decide what form of government they want. And then once they decide what form of government they want, he wants them to have free and open elections, and then he would step down. He has no desire, as Amir says, at least publicly, of maintaining some royal ascension as had been the case before. Right, Amir?
The problem, Gary, was that Donald Trump decided that he would choose someone from inside Iran to have a deal with, I think, and he basically dropped Reza Pahlavi, and that was a mistake.
He said that, but that doesn't mean Iranian give up on him. See, the reason, Gary, he said that, it is because the propaganda machine outside Iran, they are financially well up to above them head. They don't hesitate to spend millions of dollars just for being this, to do this. They use this thing outside of Iran. They says, look at the Afghanistan, look at the Iraq. If America attack us, the Taliban, they're gonna destroy you. This is the scare tactic they using, this regime using Iran. The same thing is outside. So Reza Pahlavi is a lot smarter than this.